is up, earphones? What is up, guys? It's your boy GRC. My mic's not plugged in yet, but I'm going to do that when the song goes off. That's horrible radio. Oh, that's bad. Anyway, I was just on the phone for like 30 minutes, so I'm going to update the thumbnail. I've done all of these things, and I just did not publish them. That's why we do the little intro for all my mess ups. Guys, I hope everyone's having a great day. We got Heartbeat here. I'm just going to cut to the chase, okay? Let's just cut to the fucking chase. It's Monday. Wait, is it Monday? Is it Monday? Okay, thank God. Oof, that would have been bad. Oh, yeah, it's Monday, guys. It's Monday. I haven't been to the gym yet. I started my lawn this morning, 8:30, right when they let you do the lawns. You know what I mean? Bam, right at 8:30, right on that nut. Oh, God, you know I wanted it. I was waiting for someone to get pissed, too. I'm waiting for someone to talk about the lawnmower. I'm getting the lawn done, boy. This morning. Ooh, crypto in the morning every single day at 11 a.m. Eastern. And you guys know, Jim Rat's a Monday guy. I could get shot in the leg on a Monday and I'd leave with a smile. I don't know why. God does funny things like that with people. Everybody, let's do the intro song.
You already know what time it is. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. 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 Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Smoking a blunt on my way to the gym. 11 a.m. and I'm already tuned in. Got me some hacks and I'm making a stake. Got me some heads on, I'm making it rain. Pay me some maxi and that's just in case. Jim Red sent me to show you the way. Crypto in the morning. 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 Crypto in the morning.
Yo, what's good, bro? It's good to see you. Good to see you're back at your home base.
Can I mic check it real quick? Just is the mic
Mic
okay?
check. Mic check. Yeah, you're good.
Mic check 1 2 up in the clubs. Okay.
Hey, I'm looking forward to talking to Heartbeat. I've heard his name, but I haven't watched any of his content. I think I've seen like a 2-minute clip somebody posted somewhere where he got a very thoughtful gift. Somebody.
So Rags, we'll get into the specifics there, but Rags bought him like a very emotional. I
could feel that when
I was
watched that
freaking
2-minute
upset
clip,
about that shit at the time. I was like on the stream or something. I don't even remember. I remember that being absolutely dramatic and amazing. Like I was like, this is wild. This is like next level. Like I was feeling all sorts of feelings. Like because as a young man, I just don't. Anyway, the reason this channel is the best channel is because you cannot find this perspective anywhere. I know everything about Heartbeat. I don't know everything about Text Token. That's for damn sure. But I've watched so much Heartbeat, it's classic Heartbeat. And then it's like Sam has not seen him at all. And I knew this coming in because I just know Sam's habits. I know what he looks at. And I just know he hasn't gone all the way left field with that kind of content at all yet. So you're seeing me knowing all about Heartbeat. Sam doesn't know about Heartbeats. Heartbeat's scam artist. Okay. But that's what Sam was thinking. That's what I'm saying. Like Sam's always thinking like, oh, what's the angle? What's the angle? But I feel genuinely like I watched this man get a gift about his father and emotional whole situation. Like that's why it's so important, the nuance when you're getting to know projects. Understand the founder.
If you see behavior like that, so if I'm around you and say Bullish or 2 or 3 other people and somebody else is watching and then they see you do something that has a emotional impact on me that is thoughtful and caring, or at least on the surface it appears that way, and they can sense the emotional response as in like it's impacting me in the way that you gave it to me, that says a lot about the behavior of a person, even if you can't necessarily like that's the only instance of
well, you can't make it up, Sam. That's the whole thing is you can't, if you have enough life experience going through lots of emotional highs and lows, there's some things you can't pretend. And I'm damn good at pretending. But like there's some things you just can't And then when you see it, like when Richard says that stuff about Satoshi and the code not matching up, I'm like, yep, he knows more than me about this. Been there, done that. He knows that shit. I do not know that shit. So anyway, let's get into this before I turn into a total Monday spaz monkey.
Without further ado, you guys get a bicep in the chat here. We're going to bring on crypto.
Sorry.
What's up?
Yo,
Spontaneity heartbeat. That was insane.
Dude,
He came on here, bro.
Yeah, man. No, this is great. It's fitting. It fits perfectly with your. I love your intro, man.
Yeah, I just go off the top, man. I just do how I feel, man. I feel that's how I feel. And I don't talk to all these guys anymore, which I used to be so much more interactive, probably because I started creating content, which basically puts you in a spot of like lack of typing ability and power because you just want to leave the computer when you're done. But anyway, I'm just going to start this to get it going. Heartbeat of a Hexican, self-proclaimed Hexican, loves hex, loves RH, loves the ecosystem. You know, he loves decentralized crypto and freedom. And that's kind of where the bottom line is for him. Like he loves that freedom part, like all that Texas stuff. You know what I'm saying? And
I love the
I have no freedom. I have no freedoms here, so I don't know about that life.
You should get out of that type of leadership city that you run in and move to a different type of city.
Leadership. There's no leadership.
I was trying to be nice. I was trying not to label.
Anyway, get into it. For everyone who doesn't know you, we got 56 in here. Tell us about yourself, your interaction with the community. You started a YouTube. You got real popular. Tell us that whole story because it's interesting.
Yeah, well, I started a business in 2001, right at the .com era implosion, helping nonprofit organizations raise money with the internet. And at the time, it was just email, right? People didn't have any idea what was happening. So I ended up building a very large full service fundraising agency, but it wasn't until I met a man who sold his business for $7.8 billion, which is now CVS Pharmacy, that enabled us to buy a bunch of companies. And so I ran for 10 years as CEO of that company. I sold and moved back down to my hometown in Central Texas. And of course, knew that the blockchain was going to have an impact on fundraising. And I was up at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night. And I saw an ad that said, "Would you like to be a billionaire? Would you like to be really rich?" And it was, showing yachts and all this stuff in the middle of the night. And it's this hex ad, and I didn't know what it was. I type it up on my phone, and it's crypto. And of course, my brothers have been into crypto. I had some crypto, but I was like, what is this all about? And so I actually started following it, and I started watching Hexo, and I put $600 in. It turned into 15,000, and I bought my daughter a car.
So wait, Hex was your first experience in crypto?
No. I had been in, we actually had looked at doing some mining in like 2015. But
how in depth did you know financial markets at the time? Just in general.
Oh, well, we were trading futures, so I knew it.
So you were paying attention.
I was paying attention, but I was losing my shirt trading futures. And so, I was interested in it, but it was weird that it happened like that because I thought it was a multi-level marketing scam. And so when I first, saw that video, it stood out because it was bizarre. Because, you're used to seeing like Geico commercials and stuff for car dealers. And it was like this weird ad. And I'm like, what is this all about? But then, honestly, I credit Hexo. Hexo is really the reason that I paid attention because he was so winsome and just a good dude. And so I really enjoyed that. But if it wasn't for every day I come home from work and I'd sit at the dinner table with my family and I'd be like, that crypto thing? Yeah, that Hex thing, it's doing pretty well. And my wife's like, that's not real. And I'm like, okay, well, it's, it went from 600, now it's 1,500, now it's 2,500, now it's 4,500, now it's 7,800, now it's 15,000. And
at what point did she, or were you about to get into
when I bought my daughter a car, she turned 16 and I'm like, I'll prove to you it's real. And she's like, oh. Now, here's what she's doing now. Last night, she says to me, she's like, how's that stuff going? And I was like, yeah, it's going great. It's awesome. It's amazing. She's like, that's what you said a year ago.
Oh, they forget so quick.
Well, it was a year ago. Let's be honest. But that's what's funny. But yeah, absolutely.
I know it's hard to because if you don't understand the crypto, real quick, I'm just going to read the super chat and then not cut it.
Yeah, go. Funding Jim.
Funding Jim has already been in the chat. He's already made himself present in the chat. Hey, if you're free today, Funding Jim, you just let me know. But I would really like to see influencers involved with Hex declare their minimum requirements to support or advocate for projects in crypto. Principles needed. Let me see. I would really like to see involved in Hex declare their minimum requirements to support or advocate for project/product in crypto.
I think it's, and I don't know, and I'd like to hear Crypto Harvey's thoughts after this. I think that coming up with a framework for the way people do things on certain channels, right? Because we talk about things on here, right? Other people talk about shit on their channel, and just because we're talking about things doesn't necessarily mean we're investing in. But from his Funding Jim's comment, it sounds like creating a principles or a framework to, hey, these projects, I don't know, I could be completely seeing this from a different.
No, I think I know I think you're right.
Yeah.
These four things are important to me to invest in a project: A, B, C, and D, right? And that
I'll tell you what my first one is off the top. Just we can all go around and give our top one. How about that? I want 1,000 hours of footage on the founder. No, I'm not kidding. No, I'm not. I wish everyone thought I was joking. Like I will watch him on a camera.
Yeah.
I will do. It's all that matters. He's the trigger point. He's the whole thing. It's him. It's him. I want a camera on him. I want to know what he's doing.
Oh, that's what Richard did.
That's exactly what Richard did. He knew that premium would always be there. Guys like me that were like, nope, where is he? Where is he?
Yep.
I love that he's here. It makes me so happy that he's here. It makes me feel great and I don't know who he is, but there's a person there in my life, the companies I interact with, no one there ever.
Yep.
There's no one there anymore.
Isn't it funny how it's trustless, right? This whole idea of a trustless and, censorship resistant, immutable and all that. But isn't it amazing how trust is so important? And it's really the currency when it comes to this, because, Funding Jim makes a good point. I think that it's really important. We always say, do your own research, right? No financial advice. And of course, if you start saying, well, this is the framework or this is the thing, we're basically saying you got to judge through this filter. And that's the beauty of the fact of decentralization is it's the freaking Wild West. Why? That's actually the exciting part of it. And that's why you get all of this stuff, right? You get the good, the bad, and the ugly with it. But that's what it basically says. You're in control. No one else, no middleman, no one to babysit you, no one to help you out, no one to give you a framework. Do your own research. And you know what? Most people learn by getting screwed, right? They learn by losing everything. And so I agree. It would be nice. You want to help people, but every way, though, if you're a master at something, you got wrecked, or else you cannot be propelled fast enough to be a master. I don't trust anyone who hasn't gone through tragedy in their life.
Exactly.
I just can't.
What was that thing for you, Crypto?
For me?
For Harvey, yeah.
Your first reality punch, maybe, if something you're willing to share, of course.
Well, no, I share all the time on my channel. My mother had schizophrenia. She was homeless for a while. My dad is an alcoholic. I grew up basically with a family who didn't care for me. Let's see. Both my parents died. My dad died in March 18th. I mean, just a lot of things, gone through financial ruin and destruction. So yeah, I mean, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've had up and to the right, like big time. I mean, I had 10 years of like thinking that nothing ever. I was like everything I touched turned to gold, and then I had 10 years of absolutely nothing I touched turned to gold. And now it's a new season, and it's interesting how those cycles of life. But I think once you find yourself in the emergency room, I found myself in the emergency room thinking I was having a heart attack. That's when I found out I had diabetes. I mean, there's just things in your life you realize you go through. Losing a child. I mean, there's a number of things.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be 50. I'll be 50 next year, but and I feel blessed, right? We are just absolutely blessed. I mean, been married for 18 years and got great healthy kids, but
it's fair to say you become more flexible after a lot of different, it's just, and I hate to bring it down to that, but you become more you become more plastic, more willing to change, because you just know if you stay stuck in that state for long enough, it's just negative. Like there's just nothing you can do.
Yeah.
You find out that when you cannot control something, I cannot control, let's say I like this person over here. I cannot control what they're going to do with their hands. So I'm not going to put my mental energy into thinking about their hands.
Yeah.
I can't do that. You know what I mean? I have
Yeah.
to, you just double down here. Now, what can I do to benefit the world? And I think every time that I went through something harsh, it made me only explode higher into a positive place. And I feel like some people hide from that. They want that to not occur, and it
Yeah.
slows them up.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think, when I was younger, especially if you guys got big muscles, you're strong guys, you're alpha males, right? Look at that. Boom. That's, you realize, you think, all right. And that's what I was at that point. I didn't look as good as you guys do, but I was in that impression because things were going so well. I mean, I went from being basically a kid to running a 200-person business and having, and most of the people were older than me. I was playing golf 3 to 4 times a week. I was driving a naturally aspirated V10 M5, and driving after having a couple of drinks at the club, and realizing, hold on a second, I'm on a trajectory for absolute ruin. And you go through these things in life, and you realize, and that's where faith is so important, is that when you're staring at your dad in the casket, you kind of reflect on things. And you go, you know what good healthy living is? It's the slowest way to die. I mean, we're all in line, guys. I may be in line ahead of you, but we're all going to the same destination. And I think that that's really important. Once you realize your own, fragility and depravity, you kind of go, hang on a second, there's got to be more to this than what I can muscle myself. And that's why I look at, purpose, right? Why am I here? What's the purpose of this? And what am I doing? And then you look around you and you go, I guess I got to step up because nobody else is.
That's how I feel every day.
Yeah.
That's how I feel every single day. I'm like, but it's what stepping up looks like to you.
Yeah.
So it's like stepping up looks like this to me, and no one else in my life is doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that. But like stepping up to some people is like making sure the kids are having emotional health, and like the whole thing. Like there's just, I'm a man though, and I'm single, so it's like very direct. But thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I think that's totally true.
Well, what right now in this chapter, right? Because you've had multiple chapters, as you alluded to. Where is your purpose? Because I think purpose is also dynamic as we mature and change throughout life. So where would you say your purpose right now is?
Yeah. So my life changed September 10th of 2000. I had a Christian conversion experience that was like weight lifted off of me. And so for the last, 22 years, I've been, on this pathway. But I was called probably about 8 years ago. I had a really dramatic calling to unlock global generosity. And it sounds crazy, right? Like how that's very specific, but it comes from the feeding of the 5,000. I don't know if you know that story in the Bible about how, Jesus is there. There's like 15,000 people. It was called the feeding of the 5,000, but there was more people. And literally they're like, how are we going to feed these guys? It would cost an entire year's wage just to give everybody a bite. And a boy walks up and says to Andrew, he says, hey, you can have my 5 loaves and 2 fish. And I heard a pastor say this one time, and it blew my mind, because they're like, was it a miracle? Did Jesus actually create matter from no matter? Did he like reach into a bag and grab out bread and boop, 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 boop? Well, no, the story goes that a boy came with his 5 loaves and 2 fish. And I don't know if you guys have eaten 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish in one sitting. That sounds like a meal for your family that you'd bring in the first century Palestine to the table when you're going to watch some guy talk. You're going to a concert. There's no Applebee's. There's no, 7-Eleven. And so all these people come out there, and what ended up happening? Jesus prayed, broke the bread, handed it out. They collected 12 basketfuls left over. So either he created matter from no matter and no one brought anything, or he unlocked the generosity of the people that were there. And here's the thing. We fight over scarcity, and I believe that the blockchain is the gift for us to unlock abundance. That's it. That's my whole calling. That's what I do. That's why I do everything I do.
That's beautiful. I mean, when you look at, I was talking to my girlfriend this last week or the week before, when you look at nature, right? It's not like the oak tree is trying to be like, well, fuck that oak tree. I'm going to fucking cut that thing down and destroy it. Right. Or trying to like not live up to its fullest potential, or the grass is trying to propagate as quickly as possible to continue to spread, and every other species is doing the same thing. So when you put that into perspective, like nature is truly abundant. Like there's so much.
Yeah.
There's not like, I'm not trying to, my oak trees outside are not trying to hoard fucking sunlight from other oak trees. Like it's just, everything's propagating as quickly as possible and just growing as much as possible. And there's no shortage of anything. It's the only shortage is in the ideas that we choose to
no
believe.
shortage.
Dude, that's strong, Sam. That is strong. That's true too.
So
there is
crazy.
unlimited resource. People throw it all day long at every single person, including myself. But I understood this early because people educated me, and they said, you need to learn, you need to grow, you need to be in the shoes that you're going to fill. And I said, well, if I want to do this, I better learn how to do it right. And if I want to do crypto, I better learn what the fuck's going on with security. And if I want to do all this stuff, I have to take it into my own hands. And I was fed a lie my whole life that other people were going to give me the right answer, and they were going to tell me. And then when I turned 20, you're just like, where is everyone? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I'll sell drugs, like.
Yeah. Dude, that's.
Thank you, Sam. Sorry for interrupting, but
it's so awesome. And Sam, I just want to reinforce what you're saying, because you're absolutely right. If you look in the natural order of things, everywhere you go, there's an abundance. Of course, you think about this idea of what is that? From my perspective, it's provision, right? That there's plenty to go around. It's abundant. And you think about, this is a Western idea, right? This idea that you need to get yours, right? I need to get mine, right? I have to get what's mine. And what's interesting is if you think about what the blockchain teaches us, the value comes from agreement. And if you consider others in addition to yourself, right? If you actually consider others in addition to yourself, we all win. And this is John Nash's principle that he won the 1994 Nobel Prize for in game theory. It was the movie A Beautiful Mind was made after, is because what he did was he basically said, hey, if I consider, and you remember that scene in that movie where there's that one blonde and all the brunettes, and they're like, well, hold on, if I consider what's better for my buddies, we all get a date. Maybe the blonde loses, but in this scenario, it's exactly what's happening with crypto. Is we say, hold on, if I go to Vegas and I meet Jim Rat Crypto and I give him a hug and a high five and I go, hey, what's up, man? How can I help you? And he does the same thing. We all win together. Yes. But if I fight Jim Rat Crypto for mine, we both lose. Or I might win, but he definitely loses. You're on mute, bro. You're on mute.
Those guys that fight with Jim Rat Crypto end up somewhere else. They end up in another genre. Like they never. It's like when you're really honest all the time and other people aren't used to it and they can't call you out and you're just kind of like sitting there, they're like, oh, I actually have to leave, or this guy's always going to know I'm a bullshitter. Yeah. It's like, yeah, pretty much. So, but I'm going to transition funding Jim in, and I'm just going to let you guys go because God almighty, everything coming out of your mouth, get your kids to watch this shit, man. They'll change their lives. Please. I'm not kidding either. Like these two men, I'm listening. I'm paying attention. I'm going to transition him on, and then I'm going to use the bathroom.
There you go.
Gary, good to see you.
Hey guys,
what's up, Gary?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Hey, you left a super chat in the comments earlier, and we were just trying to conjecture on what you may have meant behind that a little bit. If you wanted to, pontificate a little bit or talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, one thing is when I first saw the stream was lighting up, and then Matt's on the channel with the two of you. I was like, oh man, I would love to hear this conversation. I respect everyone, all three of you, because one, you're bold enough, brave enough, you investigate, you're curious. Blockchain, Richard Hart, community, hexagons, that means different things to different people. And what I really like about, especially Matt and the two of you as hosts, is that I think that you have defined for yourself what your principles are. And that's what I was trying to infer is, if you are, like I've seen a lot in this past couple of weeks. I haven't really been paying attention too much to Twitter, but every time that I sign in, it seems like there's some kind of drama event going on. And we go through these waves, obviously in bear markets, where people get just so anxious or driven by, the the monetary value of what they've invested their brand or their resources into, that they start to infight. And I really do not like it. I don't know how to address it. The best thing to address for me is to define what my principles are. If my principles, like you were saying, Jim Rat was kind of joking, but kind of real about saying, hey, I need the founder to have 1,000 hours of being out there, right? Being public, being a face and advocating what they believe in, what their stance is. That's one reason that Richard Hart did collate a lot of people around him, is because he was bold enough to make his principles known. It used to be as far as Bitcoin, then later as far as his worldview updating to going and saying that Ethereum now has upgraded and it's gotten better. And here are the things that still need improvement in the crypto space, especially such as no counterparty risk and minimizing third parties, things like that, right? So he states his principles, and then he defends his principles as best he can, and the audience will find him, right? So you get the audience you deserve. And it's similar, I think, with Matt. Like, he's gotten, a lot of praise, but he's also gotten a lot of flack over the launch of his particular product based on the principles that he has and the things that he would like to see and goals he would like to see accomplished with the Texas coin and everything like that, Texan coin. So I just wanted people to be more declarative about what are their minimums. And then if they put themselves out there and they have an audience that grows, their audience knows what to expect from them. Where you see turbulence is when people say, I'm all about Richard Hart maximalism. Well, that's dumb. Do not be a Richard Hart maximalist.
I don't even think real people think like that. Like, I wouldn't even,
like,
if I was talking to funny Jim in a room and I didn't know all his, didn't have insight on what he was thinking about, I'd be like, there's no way in hell this grown-ass successful man tells me he's a maximalist of anything.
Right.
Because he's a grown-ass successful man.
Well, that's what I was getting at is I do hear some people, and they let it slip, and it is kind of their philosophy at the moment, but then they 6 months later, they're not in that position anymore. And they haven't declared what they have.
Well, wait, 12,000%. They'll be like, Richard's my best friend.
Yeah. But they haven't declared what updated their worldview. They simply vacillate and oscillate. And I don't really like that. So when people, like I was saying, some people will say that they're Richard Hart maximalists. I'm not. Some people will say that they're profit maximalists. I'm not. I'm not selling crack to little kids. That's profitable, right? So there's all kinds of things that people say, I'm a profit maxi in the crypto world. No, you're not. You shouldn't be. I don't think you should be, because there's all kinds of ways to be profitable that's not necessarily ethical or leads to, a positive outcome for this industry. So even when people have that kind of mind frame, or they say that out publicly, I think that they don't realize the grenade that they throw.
And it kind of tells, it shows their cards a little too. It shows a little lack of insight, a little reputation, lack of understanding. Like, you really need to cover your ass in life. Yeah. I make sure everything I say, I would say again tomorrow, because God knows they're going to bring it up.
Well, let's talk about the religion thing just for a moment. And I just say it as a principle. As a principle, I like people that are, they have codified their beliefs. I like that a lot. I like people that have defined the ground that they're going to stand on. And if they evangelize, and it doesn't matter whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whether it's, their sense of community or the sense of maverick lone wolf, whatever it is, if they declare, I like that. I like to know where I stand with people, and I want them to know where I stand. And I like that a lot. So in some ways, Richard Hart has his position, and he has certain things that people characterize as outrage, and some things are saying, no, this is his principle and how he gets audience. Same thing with Matt. Matt has declared himself, and others have. Matt and I have a common friend that's very, very significantly invested in the Hex ecosystem. And to some degree, he comes out every so often publicly. But, I like these stalwart personalities that say, here's where I'm at. And Matt isn't going to ask somebody and say, hey, are you Muslim? And then find out that they're Muslim and no longer talk with them or relegate them to the netherworld. He's not going to do that. He's not going to do that about if they believe that Texas succession from the United States is a valid point or not. He's not going to do that. He's simply declaring his position. And I would like the people inside of crypto or inside of Hex or inside of Pulse Chain or Richard Hart audience do the same thing, especially if they are public enough to have a Twitter, an Instagram, a YouTube, and try and aggregate an audience. If they are doing those things, please let people know where they stand. I had a conversation the other day with My Life is Awesome. He'd reached out to me, and he was saying, he was asking, should he loves his motivational speeches. And he was asking how he can frame that inside of his existing YouTube channel. And what I had said is, you're going to confuse your audience. Simply launch a second YouTube channel. Simply allow people to allow the algorithm to help you out, because when people visit your channel and they expect one type of content, and then you basically throw a completely different content at them, they will probably not revisit, because that's not what they expected, right? Have your content, have your values, have those known, but kind of feed to the audience appetite that you're trying to grow, and that's what I like about, everyone here is we all advocate, and we advocate our stance, but it does blur the line, and it makes it harder for audiences to find us.
I think to go off of what Gary was saying, and then Heartbeat, I would like to hear about your token coin DAO. What I actually have no context for what it is, so I'd like to hear about it. But you talked about maybe having a purpose of unlocking generosity, right? If I understood, Heartbeat did, and then Gary talking about infighting, just briefly, right? But and principles, right? But both of those things, I think, come together or get distilled to the point where generosity is unlocked when somebody knows themselves. You can have principles that you can stand on and tell people that, like, this is where I stand. Like, I don't give a shit what you think. Not necessarily that I don't love you. I love you as a person. I want the best for you, kind of thing. But this is where I stand on things. And both of those pieces, to me, how I see the world, come back to really truly understanding yourself, because it's really hard to have gratitude for everything, whether that's giving somebody, a nice message, or giving somebody cash, or just spending some time with people to help them out in whatever it is that they need help. And maybe that's just support, as in, let me listen while this other person is talking. So on the one sense, there are different words that are coming out of each mouth right there, but to me, it's the same exact thing. Is people need to know themselves, because if you don't know yourself, you can't have a solid ground to stand on, because I'll just come there and say something and you'll just get blown away. And then somebody else will say something and you get pushed the other way. But when you truly understand yourself, then you can have your feet planted on the ground to actually stand for something that's important to you, whether that's gratitude and giving and helping the world, or whether it is like infighting because you stand for something. So the infighting's stupid. Like, it's drama that doesn't have to matter, period. Right. So that's at least how I see it. Heartbeat, I'd love to hear what this token is, this Texas.
Yep.
I know nothing about it, so I'm not describing it in any way because I don't know about it.
Well, just on your last comment, I just wanted to throw something out there. Look at Richard Hart from the beginning, right? We know that in 2006, he was working with the Sens Foundation as a volunteer. We know that he put on the top hat and told people how to be a better friend. He told people how to apologize. He taught people, he wrote 2 self-help books, right? This is all before any of this stuff, right? Obviously, he had been a successful business person, saw hard times. He talks about his dad working in HVAC and also his mom having schizophrenia. And I know what that looks like. And it's a tough time. And he knew he wanted to do something different. He was obviously, wicked smart. And so at the end of the day, Richard Hart was giving, and he understood that. But you make a really good point. So many people in this world don't have a sense of who they are. A lot of people do not have dads. Not a lot of people have felt like they have the love or unconditional love of parents. And so because of the nature of this, people are looking around for things that they can moor themselves to. So they look at relationships, or they look at drugs, or they look at some way to either cover over the problem or try to satisfy it a certain way. And I think that Richard Hart understood that fundamentally. And, you talk about a bunch of hours or a framework or whatever, people listened to him and they got value from him, right? And he built trust. And it's funny because it's literally opposite of what blockchain. We think that the blockchain is like headless, which it is, and it's, immutable. Yes. And this idea of it being decentralized. Yes, absolutely. But there's something really core at this idea of, I look around at hexagons, every single person here, I look at everywhere I go. And what's the common denominator? People who have seen hard times. These are not silver spoon, Ivy League people from the Hamptons. This is people in the military. This is people who've seen hard times. This is people who can relate. Look at you guys. You're like, I like when somebody tells it how it is. You know what? If you want somebody who's soft, go to Hoskinson or, go to Vitalik. People are attracted to Richard Hart, and he brought value and he's speaking wisdom. There's truth in that. And then you see him act it out and you're like, well, I couldn't say those things. People would destroy me. And he's like, he doesn't care. Hold on. He's got confidence. He's somebody that knows who he is. And we respect that in people. And so I agree. I think a lot of people, though, is we've got to realize you guys have a responsibility. I sense that responsibility. I know that Gary does as well, is to say people are looking, they're calling up Gary and they're like, Gary, what do I do? And I feel like it's a responsibility rather than saying, you need to go, get more Lambos. You'll feel better if you get a Lambo. No, we're not saying that. We're like, hold on a second. No, put money in its proper place. It's a great tool if you use it effectively. And so I think what's so great about crypto is not the money, it's the community that actually we're helping each other get better by also saying, I care for you. You have value. You matter. And to me, that's one of the most powerful things Richard Hart ever did is he breathed life into people. And that's, hey, I see it for what it is. And I know that's the only way you want to win friends.
He sees it too. He clearly sees it. And that's dangerous. And it's dangerous because he's attracting a lot of leaders to one place, and he's telling them that you should free think, and you should come here, and we're not going to lie to each other for a minute. Yeah, like we're all going to just put our hands in the air and say, like, this might have more momentum than anything. This might be able to work, and if we want it to work, because I did AA for a long time, so like I know what it's like to have a community of people that want to work with you for no reason other than the fact that it makes you want to be a better person. Yeah. But once you realize that giving unlocks your whole entire potential, like you just keep doing it because you're just like, oh, wait, so I could steal and make 100 grand this year, or I could make 50 grand, not steal. Everyone loves me. And in 5 years, I have $1 billion. Yeah. And it's just like, I'm not going to take your little bribe to ruin my career right now before it started. You know what I mean? And that's what he kind of taught me to be hyper focused on the verbiage, not the words, but the verbiage you use. He doesn't incriminate himself, and everything he says, he truthfully believes, and he would say again. And that's what I like about the way he talks.
Very, very awesome points here. And I think this conversation is awesome. If you guys are enjoying this, take a second, share this out to other people, because like truly I get the sense that like everybody wants everybody else to win. And I'm not like trying to get your money or give a shit what you have to do with your life. Like, I just want you to be happy and win at life on your terms. And I get the sense that everybody has that same belief or ethos here. So if you found value in this conversation, take a second, share this out.
Yeah. And I just tweeted this out. And funny, Jim, I know I had to run to the bathroom right when I transitioned on. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. And I'm so glad you could hop on whenever. And I've been watching your content. I don't watch many people's, but you tune into the ones you kind of come on and a little bit later at night. And I love what you're doing. I love everything you're doing. Everything you're doing, I agree with. It's just like, your app people. Yeah. Like this morning, for example, the first thing I read was Trayvon's a piece of crap about something. And I was kind of like, yeah, come on. He's doing his thing. He's not a piece of crap. And then funny, Jim, first comment. Come on, bro. Why are you putting yourself against the wall here? This is another man. He puts his face out there. Whatever you said, it was absolutely true and honest. And I just really appreciate the vibe that you put out there where you can be confident. And it's okay if everyone doesn't fucking like what you're saying.
Yeah, basically I was just pushing back about, it was a 5-year-old post. I'm not saying that, people haven't been harmed by the BitConnect thing. That was really what Trayvon's brand was tarnished by. And back in 2017 or so is when all that happened. And it's not in defense of the product or the action. What I like is Trayvon in 2021, 22, he's very clear on his channels. And he says, hey, I've got this thing launching. I'm the face of it or I'm not. I participate or I'm not. I hold Hex. I bought it because of this. And now I'm watching what's happening in the ecosystem. It's the same thing with, there's another person that was just listening to this yesterday. But it's the same sort of thing. Like I don't want people to be simply sycophant and say, Richard Hart can talk about anything and everything. And I'm going to love everything that he puts out there. People don't have to do that. People simply have to have their own determination about what it is that they can and can't advocate that is based on their own principles, their own research, their own knowledge base. And what I personally really appreciate is that when people go into the idea of battle, it's an idea. They've never had battle. They were all 18 before they went into the military. And then they have a military experience and they say, hey, you know what? Sometimes war isn't, the noble thing. It isn't noble,
I
right?
can only imagine doing military with you three boys. That'd be fucking great.
Yeah. I mean, and we all morph over time. Our ideas, if you look at your 18-year-old self and you look at your 28-year-old self, and I'm older, 38, 48, you're a different person. And what you hopefully do is maybe you're lucky enough to be born smart. Maybe you are. But everyone can become wise. Everyone. And it's basically just through tempering your experiences and drawing from them and then relating them to other people so that they're more tempered, they're more steeled.
Yes. I'd like to transition, if you guys will, to crypto. And can we learn about this heartbeat? What you're working on?
Can you give it to us for the people that have no idea? Because, to be honest, I'm gonna just give you my honest take from just being completely outside. I ain't never looked into it yet. I promise. I haven't. I just been just listening, right?
Yep.
Because I don't know. I've never been to Texas personally, and I don't know shit about Texas, and I don't know shit about freedom because they don't give you any near DC and Baltimore. So
They don't.
So I want to know more about what actually is going on, like the specifics and what you launched here.
Yeah, you bet. All right. So it's at Texan.cc. So it's the Texan token. So let me give you a background on it. So about 2 years ago, I read a book, which is this book here called Texit by Daniel Miller. And of course, if you've been following politics, I've been following politics for a while, you don't have to pay too close attention and know that things are kind of backwards. And of course, I've been interested ever since I got to Texas about, the Texas culture and how different it is and how amazing it is. Well, I would help nonprofit organizations raise money. And in the traditional fundraising model, you beg for money, right? And the organization gets it and the donor hopefully gets a good feeling in the process. And so when I saw blockchain and understood what it was doing, I knew that this was going to have an impact on fundraising. But it wasn't until Richard Hart did the Sens Foundation piece that it was like, bam, I got it. When he actually raised money for the Sens Foundation as a part of token distribution for the Pulse Sack, I'm like, that's it. That's how this works. Because I've been thinking about and looking into innovations in fundraising for a long time. I started in a new, sector in 2001 called the internet, and people could not believe it. They're like, oh no, that's not legal. You can't ask for money on the internet. Should we collect email addresses? Are you sure this thing's going to survive? Same story, right? Well, when I saw that from Richard Hart, I realized, hold on a second, this is an opportunity for us to do something in fundraising to help actually create some value. And so we realized, all right, at the end of the day, tokenizing a community that currently exists is probably the best way you can get the most amount of people into the Pulse chain, for example, right? So if I was sharing with my doctor buddy and my dentist and all these different people, well, that's onesie twosie, right? Well, when I look at organizations, I see a huge community and I realize something. And if people don't realize this yet, wake up. It's not because of the Hex contract. It's enabled by it. But here's the deal. Richard Hart would be a smart guy with some code if it wasn't for Funding Jim, if it wasn't for RG3, if it wasn't for Hexo, if it wasn't for Jim Rat Crypto. Without people believing and promoting, you have zero, absolutely zero. And so for Hex to be where it is a miracle because it's hard to do. And so when you understand that it's about, building community, and how do you build community? By giving value to people. Well, what has Richard done? He's the giving tree, right? Well, to make a long story short, I read this book, Texit, and I write, hold on a second. There's 500,000 people, or way more than that care about freedom and sovereignty, that don't think things are going in the right direction. And they said they're bad at fundraising. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, I think the secret to this is to unlock value. If you guys need, whatever the dollar amount is, you want to bring this to a referendum on the ballot of Texas to let the people of Texas decide that they want to be an independent nation once again, right? That's the referendum in 2023. If you're going to get this on the ballot, you're going to need resources. And they basically said, all right, will you help us with fundraising? I said, you want to raise $1 million or $1 billion? And they chose $1 billion. I said, all right, we're going to tokenize your community. We're going to utilize the elements of the blockchain and the fundamentals of good tokenomics to unlock these resources. Well, what's the FUD? Oh, you're just copying Hex. No, we created the first endowment token on the blockchain. You know, what's funny is if you listen to Richard Hart, put yourself in my shoes. You got to build something for a community that's purely theirs. Texan token for Texas people to have an independent Texas. What do? The first thing Richard Hart taught me, you program in interest, right? So we've created an endowment. So in my background of fundraising, endowments are essentially a perpetuity. You want to perpetuate something and you want to create with it the ability to create cash flow. And so unlike Hex, where you lock things up, and if you don't serve at least half your time, there's a penalty to it. We decided we're going to create a scenario like a nonprofit endowment where you would lock up your funds and then you choose when you want to pull your interest. So for example, the base rate's 5%. If you want 5% every year, you could scrape your interest at any time. Doesn't affect your principal stake, but you're reset to day one when it comes to your interest. Or you could literally hold it for 22 years and say, all right, I want the maximum possible yield that it can pay in Texan tokens. And so that's the premise by which we built the first endowment token on the blockchain. Does it have elements of smart tokenomics? Absolutely. Did we learn those from Richard Hart? Yes. Do we want the Pulse chain to grow? Yes. But also we want to bring in millions of people into the ecosystem. But we're not just a group that's helping the Texan token. We're working with a group of 6 million in the Philippines. I've got a group in Western Africa we're talking to. We're talking to the independence movement of the Western Cape of South Africa. I mean, you know, it is what it is. And so that's what we're doing. And, you know, if you donate to the Texas Nationalist Movement, 100% of it. See, this is the other thing. We didn't do a sacrifice. Actually, I had our legal team basically said, you cannot accept money for a sacrifice. And I can tell you all the details about that legally. They said 100% of the money, you cannot accept money from anyone. You're the one that is issuing the airdrop. And so we decided to change the model and advocate for someone else to do token distribution with a community of people who will value the token and hold, because we know that buying and holding is the key to price stability. So that's where we are. And it's not for everyone because it's tied to a political outcome. But in the meantime, I hope we unlock generosity by helping people have value in this great state of Texas and beyond.
That's awesome. I love that. And there's going to be so many more unique, cool, creative, resourceful ways to use the smart contracts, crypto, blockchain in a way that can impact the world that we want to see in a positive way. How are you thinking about the distribution for this?
So we are airdropping anyone. You qualify for an airdrop if you sacked for Pulse, so your Genesis wallet for Pulse or Pulse X, or you have a Hex stake. So we're going to do across the board for anyone who claims that. So they'll have to claim to be in the airdrop. But then on the other side of it, there's loyalty points that the TNM, which is the Texas Nationalist Movement, they're a 501c4 organization. They give loyalty points and we recognize those at the rate that they give them. And so it started at 10,000 to 1. There's a bonding curve, but then there's also anyone who gives cash to them receives 10,000 to 1 loyalty points. And we do token distribution based on those loyalty points. But the money goes to them. The money doesn't go to us.
And okay, so there's Pulse Sacrifice, Pulse X Sacrifice, and Hex Stakers.
Yep. You qualify if you have one of or all of those, but you don't get 3, you get 1.
Okay, and it's a fixed amount, or is it based upon the principal?
Fixed amount. Yeah, fixed amount.
Okay, and is that a Hex stake that has been opened or closed, or if there's a currently active Hex?
No, we're going to go back. It has to be before January 3rd. I'm sorry, July 3rd. So anyone that's created it since we launched, you know, there was a bunch of people that were like, we're going to create a bunch of Hex stakes so we get all of these airdrops. And I'm like, sorry. Yeah, it's rolled back on the chain.
And then this is going to be launched or is launched already on Ethereum?
No, it's on Pulse Chain. It will be on Pulse Chain.
Awesome. And you can take this and stake it, or how are they earning?
Yeah. So we have so here's the thing. When we started this a long time ago, and we decided, just like Funding Jim said, you got to have principles. Well, what's the framework we had? One, it's got to be a complete audited contract. This is not a PowerPoint presentation or an idea. Oh, I got an idea. Do a SAC test. No, finished code. CERTIC is the one that certified it, and we have to pay for them to continually certify that it's the exact same contract as we submitted. Want to have our team doxed, want to have the DApp and testnet live, so you can go in and you can swap your test pulse or pulse X for Texan right now on the testnet. And so all of those boxes are checked. And you can look at the code, you can walk through it, you can ask us questions, got Telegram across, around the clock. We're not messing around.
And is it the just acquisition and holding of this Texan token that just accrues value through inflation of 5% a year, or how does it have to be?
So one of the things I learned from Richard Hart, and you probably did too, that the number one way that things get hacked is through an inflation bug. So we decided we're not going to have inflation. So what we decided to do is we created a table of interest, and it's actually a daily rate that's actually in the contract itself. And so what happens is it's a fixed supply, but it's locked up in the contract, meaning there's no OA keys. There's no OA. Who's going to dump on my head? There's 100 trillion total.
There's the contract address, and then the money's just on the contract address, but it's just
so there's no so once
tampered with.
Once it's launched, those keys are gone. Like no one holds those.
So it might as well just be dead coins.
Well, that's what the staking mechanism is. And so in order to mine out, so it's basically a proof of stake mine. So instead of having inflation pay those, the fixed supply is actually debited or credited based on how much time you serve. So for example, if you said, I want to do a stake for 22 years, but you don't, you pull the ripcord on the interest, it's going to set you back to day one. And each time it does that, it recalculates what your potential interest is. What's cool about it though, is it burns everything at the beginning so that you have to mint back your own rewards at the end. And so these are all principles that we've learned from Richard Hart.
When you click that last button, you actually mint the whole entire supply.
You mint and your principal
it's
back.
It's just a note of accounting until then.
Okay.
And from a security standpoint, so the total supply is already in the contract so I'm thinking if I've got $50 on the table, it's cool, that's a security risk, but it's just sitting out there on the table. Whereas if I have a contract and there's 16 billion tokens, and for some reason that goes up in value, that's just a big target for fuckers to come after.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the biggest challenges that Richard Hart's had, right? Where'd the ETH go? You're the OA. You're going to dump on our heads, right? And he's like, I don't know who the OA is, right? He's created a lot of mystery there. There's no mystery with us. There are no keys to that to that supply. And so there will be no one that has access to it. It's gone. And so what's interesting about when you do this is you put this contract out there. If no one engages with the contract, there's zero value. Zero. Because it's immutable. There's no way. It's only you in the contract. And so the idea of this is essentially taking a mine. Let's say you have a gold mine. You're like, we know that in this gold mine, there's $100 trillion worth of gold. Well, if you keep mining that out, there will be less and less and less and less. Well, at some point in time, it's gone. But that's essentially the gift that you give into this community of people to say, we want you to experience the unlocking of value within your community of people. And so that's what we're doing across the world is we're coming to groups saying, look, there may be 150,000 people in Hex, right? 150,000, that's about it, right? There's probably 300,000 wallets, right? 150,000 people have created over $2.8 billion worth of resources that are locked in that contract to Hex, staked, right? Look at the market cap it's created. 150,000 people. Do you know how small of a group that is? That's a miracle that you can unlock billions of dollars with 150,000 people. It's a miracle. It's amazing. Well, what if people across the world had that same experience? And I know that people that hold a huge bag of Hex would love for another 150,000 people to come into Hex. But you know what the key to that is? All these people that are in the system state, they're going to get free tokens on the Pulse chain. Guess what they're going to hear about? This guy, Richard Hart, that just forked this thing. What did he do? Hex. What has it been doing? 100% uptime. Perfect, flawless operation. Best logo, best founder, called the top. Sound familiar? That's how this thing's going to grow. He's building all of these things in, and he's given us the roads to drive on.
So this is super interesting, super cool. I'm like, hey, why don't you come to Florida and talk to some of the leadership out here, right? But that's on a tangent.
Hey, they're decent in Florida. I mean,
I love I live in Florida.
At least they let you go bang bang on people when they come up on you.
Somebody comes to the door, it's perfectly fine. But anyways, so this is awesome, right? But the distribution is worldwide, right? From Pulse X and Hex Takers.
Yeah.
And it's got the name of Texan, right? So is this value going to accrue to Texas in some capacity?
No, there's
nothing
official. It's a brand.
How is this related to the political, that stance of autonomy?
Yeah. Well, the only way it's tied is the first 90 days we're raising money. We're utilizing this as a token distribution, right? So in the past, you had done a sacrifice, and the founders would receive the money. That's everything that's happened since, in the Pulse chain that's done a sacrifice, right? In a traditional model, you'd give money to me, right? I'd count it as 10,000 to 1, and I'd give you token, right? That's the simple way to saying it. Our attorney said you cannot do that, because as soon as you do that, you set a price. Because even if, no expectations and political statements and all they said there's no legal precedent for the term sacrifice when it comes to the financial side of things. That's a new term that's been made up. You may be able to make that argument, but basically our attorney said you gotta actually be able to convince a jury.
And we're in two different jurisdictions too. Well, he doesn't. I mean, that's my question. I guess that would be more of a question.
No, totally.
Because the reason he don't like the states is because they're clearly very strict.
Yeah.
And so, but you're just playing the rules, but learning on the. We're all just trying to figure out where we're at in the legality, of course.
Well, yeah, and I'm just erring on the side of caution, right? And so what I saw this as is this is an innovation in fundraising, right? The beauty of the reason the Sens Foundation was such an inspiration to me is the fact that people gave directly to this organization for longevity research. That's legitimate, straight up. It's a donation. And there's a lot of precedent for what donation means. The problem is the sacrifice and points, you establish a price. That's what our legal counsel said. And so 100% of the money goes directly to this nonprofit. But to answer your question, Sam, 90 days is going to essentially, anyone who donates, we recognize with no value, donation premium called Texan token. It helps us with token distribution to get it in the hands of people who actually care. Now, to your point about Texas, I went to, I was in Tokyo, and I was at a grocery store, and a lady came up to me. She knew I wasn't from around there, and she said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Dallas." She goes, "Oh, Cowboys," right? The Texan, Texas is known across the world. And what's happening in Canada with freezing the truckers' accounts, what's happening in the Netherlands, what's happening with nitrogen in the farmers, what's happened with tanks and banks in China, what's happened with the pandemic. At the end of the day, who's going to push back? And is there an opportunity to literally birth a new nation, have a place that could be the best place on earth for crypto? That's what I'm hoping, because when Texas becomes independent again, we have to think through these rules. No more Fed, folks, right? What's the value of the family? How's your money backed? All of these things will be decided. The first call I'd make if they asked me about blockchain, Richard Hart, what would make Texas the greatest place on earth for crypto? I don't know the answer to that. He would. But that's the kind of thing. He doesn't need to live in a third world unsafe country. He can come right to a first world one. The 9th largest economy in the world is called Texas.
Oh, but I mean, hopefully in the future, that's a statement is
hopefully
legitimized or whatever. But right now, I mean, there are beautiful, beautiful places outside of this country where people can find salvage that have really good value propositions. And I'm worried that the value propositions are getting too strong elsewhere, because I'm starting to feel it. And I'm just starting to feel it. Like, I'm like, yo, if this is all about to go down, like, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here.
Well, Gary knows all about that.
And I wanted to switch to Gary real quick, Funding Jim real quick. Give us your take on all this stuff. I don't know where you're at, how much of this information have already looked through. What do you think about some of these stuff? You brought up principles before. We've talked on that a lot. Like, give us your take on all that.
I think it's a great thing, because actually Matt had covered a few of the elements that I would require to participate. Full disclosure, I'm Texan. I was raised in Texas.
Oh,
I put a
wow.
couple of links also about something that Matt, I don't know if you moved there, if you were born there, but when I was a teenager, my grandfather and I did the 150-year celebration of Texas's independence. That was a wagon train, basically, that went 3,000 miles around Texas. Other facts or trivia, I love trivia, is if you said, what are the largest machines in the world? Some people might say the Large Hadron Collider. Some people might say a battleship, because they're interconnected parts that are necessary for the goal. And the largest machine in the entire world is the West Coast power grid, because alternating current cycles. And that means that the lights are flickering in Seattle at the same cycle, at the same moment as the ones in San Diego. All light is going through about 60 hertz. And, that means that there's some that are generating power and some that are pulling out power, but that's the largest machine in the world. The second largest machine in the world is the East Coast, east of the Mississippi power grid in the United States. And that means that Florida and New York are flickering. The lights are flickering at the same exact millisecond moment. The third largest machine in the world is the state of Texas. And that is because it is ingrained inside the culture of Texas to be independent. It's kind of landmarked with the Alamo and all these other kinds of things that are cultural references, history of the origin. Just a lot of history is steeped in the fact that Texas has seaports. It has the Gulf of Mexico. It generates more calories than its population consumes. It has more natural resources in the ground than the population consumes. It's a net exporter, and it is, as far as the economy, when Matt's talking about economy, has a lot in common with the stance that the UK, Britain, has had with its Brexit. It has said, hey, we are paying into a common coffer, but we're not really getting the benefit of that common coffer as far as Brexit being in the EU, and saying that Brussels has control over the purse strings of England. So there's a lot in common there. And I think that another small bit of trivia is Phil Collins, famous from Genesis and his own music and things like that, is actually the largest collector of the Alamo memorabilia. It's a strange thing for a guy that is, a music rock star icon and things like that out of England, to be so beholden to the principles that Texans have held for a long time. I mean, a long time. This idea of exit has been around as long as I've been alive. The idea has, and it really comes down to this, to what do you stand for? I think it's gotten blurred in our societies in general, and I would like people to be more declarative. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily trying to be a battling tribe with a neighbor because you stand with the principle of sovereignty or a decision of where your resources go. Other things that Matt had said that I really liked about it is that he's going through the legal and the regulatory processes, that it's basically an endowment, that all of the team members are doxed and basically a known whether they advocate publicly and they're on the board, or if they are private and they have their statement of support by receiving a valueless token at the time of distribution. I like all the principles, and it's obvious that Matt has listened to what Richard has had to say over the past several years and absorbed a lot of that content about the development of how Hex was launched and about the principles about how Pulse Chain and Pulse X are going to stand inside the crypto economy. So I love everything that has been said, and I would support that because they stand on my principles, not because I like Matt, he's a nice guy, but it is because he's declaring what are the principles of the token, what's the use case, and why is it that philanthropic or political or Texan or speculators would participate? Why would they think that this has value?
I would love to hear your thoughts, Harpy and Gary and GRC, on this, because the idea of independence or creating another nation, right, with Texas is appealing on the one hand, right? Because you have, 192 or 200 plus, depending on if you're going by US sources or like UN organizations that control 8 billion people. And those 200 nations are, that control 8 billion people. And you're like, does that seem like it's a good idea to have 200 organizations control 8 billion people, creating the independence? You know what I mean? So what are your thoughts on that? Because if that does go through, that's I mean, it reminds me of Yugoslavia, right? Yugoslavia. I don't remember when that was, in the 90s or something, maybe, or late 80s, where part of Europe, and now it's Croatia and 6 other countries or 8 other countries, and that's going to set the precedent to. I could see Florida following suit, or 7 other states following suit in that, right? And I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on that. Like, do you think the
I gotta look more
expansion?
into that. When was that? You said 90s?
If you guys remember the dates, I don't remember when Yugoslavia was, but it was a big part of Europe.
Yep.
One part of Europe was trying to make the other part pay for shit that they didn't want to agree with,
And they actually got out of it.
And then they declared, they.
Oh, wow.
Well, look at
apart.
the Soviet Union. I mean, Kazakhstan, Borat's an example of it, right? Getting out of the Union. But no, to your point, Sam, you make a good point. Here's the thing I think is really important is to understand the origin. Fundamentally, if you look at the United States Declaration of Independence and you see, these things are self-evident, right? That all men are created equal, right? There's these certain unalienable rights, right? That you're given by a creator, that you're not given, no one gives you, when you say about, 200 organizations controlling 8.8 billion, fundamentally, I reject that idea because at the core of at least the foundation of America, we said, if a man is ruled from within, he doesn't have to be ruled from without, meaning your gifts and your skills and your rights are given to you by a creator, not by the state. A politician doesn't say, Sam, you have these rights. No, we enumerate them, but they're fundamental to you being human. And
but more so taxes and regulations.
Yeah,
is the framework what I was.
Absolutely. Yes. So with that kind of framework, when the colonies became states, they saw themselves as independent nations, right? Even though that they were small at the time. But as things have grown, right, and there's a lot of cases for, the stars on the flag have increased in number, but at the core, each of these states, we're the United States of America in a union. And I think one of the best questions for people is, if in fact we were a separate, territory or a certain group that wanted to join the union, can the United States make a case to us of why we would join today? And the answer is no. There's not a reason to join. But it says in Article 1 of Section 1 of the Texas Constitution that all political power resides in the people. And if it becomes necessary, you can either change or abolish that and reset up your own. Well, it's very threatening to world order. And I think people that are fearful go, hold on, what does it mean? And I will say this, I don't know what's going to happen with the referendum. The latest poll was 66% of people. It only takes 50 plus 1 in order to pass it. However, what's interesting is you do not gain power or influence by being weak. And so what I see in this has been around as long as Gary's been around, right? Everybody talks about Texas going alone. Why? Because we were an independent nation for 9 years. The reason that I don't think this has happened until now is, 1, the political winds have shifted, and 2, there hasn't been the resources. And so we look at this and we go, what could be the catalyst? And the only thing I can see is potentially crypto. I see what happened with X. I see what happened with crypto in general. And I go, what would it look like if there was resources for the people of Texas? And could that change the very nature of things? But the implications, I mean, this is, there was a civil war in the United States over the issue of slavery. I mean, this is a crisis era. And so I'm not naive to think that it may not have implications, but at the end of the day, this place is upside down and backwards. And somebody's got to push back and say, no, if I had to make guesses on it, I think that this is going to be a wake-up call to people in the United States.
This is a point that Matt makes. Again, if people investigate the history, is like you said, about 9 years of being a sovereign country. It had its own currency. It had its own Texas dollar and things like that. I put the link also in the private about that history. And it's not necessarily, like I said, it is standing on the principle, whatever the principle of that community, of that, whatever the scale is. If it gets a large enough area, then we'd say that's the borders of Texas. And we talk all the time about like the economic power, I think that California is the 9th largest economy in the world, something like that, like all of the state of California. And you have seen over the past 2 to 3 years a migration, and a migration has said, hey, I'm going to give up California real estate, California live by the ocean, California weather, and I'm going to move to Tennessee or Texas. and it has
now
come
it's
to
California getting mugged if you leave your fucking house. It's like
or 50,000 windows per year in San Francisco being bashed in the cars. So you
watch
have
a lot
this
of body cam footage from Daily Update, and they all come from LA, and like the people don't even react there. Like they're literally, the cops are like, "Oh my god, another crackhead with a gun." They're like, "Oh, dude."
But
like,
that's not the cop. That's not the cop. That almost always is the mayor or the government.
Well, no, I'm just saying it became so normal, like that the cops are. It's like it's a different, like when you watch like Chicago stuff versus LA stuff. The Chicago guys aren't used to the nonsense. They're used to the gunfire. But now it's becoming this like nonsense thing where like half the calls, they don't matter. And then the other half, the dude's about to shoot someone. It's like, it's hard. I'm just saying their job's down to police officers. I respect every single police officer.
Well, here's the crux of it, in my opinion. And the crux of it is you see on coasts, big major cities, and you say, what happens when you can anecdotally just observe and say, what happens when there is a natural disaster? Say that there's an earthquake or a blackout or something along those lines. Often, because you live in the tenement with someone else, but you don't really know them, you don't have accountability, you don't have community necessarily. Simply because you're congested with other human beings doesn't mean that you have community. And so you see things like riot or burn out of neighborhoods that are they don't have a sense of accountability. Now, what happens when a natural disaster happens in Texas or Oklahoma or agricultural base inside the United States? There is often a pulling together to say, okay, we have a big flood. Let's make sure that we have all the sandbags and that we rebuild, where the tornado tore down the town. You see a community because there are people that are accountable to each other. There is accountability in agricultural societies. And I like that a lot. I don't like that's one thing I said again was when he declares and says the team is doxxed. That means that there's accountability. What I don't like, and I see it often inside of Pulse Chain's narrative and the launch of 115 or 120 different projects that everybody wants to see economic energy and movement, is no one likes a scam. No one wants to fall for something. No one wants their neighbor to be harmed or hurt. But there's a lot of that is probably going to happen if you don't determine your principles. What are your principles? I want accountability. I want to know if I was growing up as a kid, everybody in my neighborhood of maybe 10,000 people, city, town, small township, knew everybody. If I'm in the military, I have my name branded across my uniform. If I'm in medicine and I'm serving people in life and death situations for 20 years, I've seen over 100,000 hearts. They want your credentials and your name across because you're representing to them their viability, their future. And I want that same kind of thing inside of the ecosystem of crypto. Last comment is, I spent a lot of time with Tim Draper. A lot of people know who he is. He's a major VC. I'm sorry about the background noise. Maybe I should break. Can you hear a lot of background?
It's a lawnmower of some sorts.
Yeah, let me pause. Let me pause. Look, I'll come back to Tim Draper after we start.
You're doxing yourself because it's an expensive lawnmower, so that I know you're.
It's a service. It's a service for my neighborhood.
That's a 360 double blade, so I know they only sell it.
Let me come back to it. I'll come back to it, but it's going to be about Tim Draper.
I'm going to real quick just say thank you so much, Jerry Oaksmith, and can we get everyone to just throw up a quick come on for this funding?
Come on, Jim.
Come on, Gary.
Yeah, funding Jim.
Hey, Jerry Oaksmith, your money goes a long way here. Thank you so much. 5 bucks in the chat for Jerry, and go on, please. Funding. Sorry about that.
Gary's got it.
Great.
I'll come back. Talk maybe a little bit more.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll talk for a minute. So
I'll come back after my second.
I'll transition to Sam because I know he probably has something to say here, and he's probably got to get off in about 5 minutes here. So Sam, just to summarize for yourself and everyone that's been here, like in any other questions that you have about Texan token, we'll probably do another.
So what if people want to reach out to you or they have more questions, or I know you did it for a second earlier, but like how is the best way? I'm assuming GRC may stay on longer, but I got to go in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
How can people get more information about this?
Yeah. So Texan.cc, cryptocurrency, Texan.cc. is where you can find the majority, all socials and everything. We've got Telegram and people across the world manning that. Those are the two best places. Texas_token on Twitter. And then, of course, Brandon from Rags to Riches and myself, we're streaming pretty much every day, so you can ask questions of us. But yeah, I mean, it's happening. We're in I think we got 75 days left of the donation phase. And anyone who gives cash in the form of credit card, it's always 10,000 to 1. And that's really to serve the internal TNM audience. And then crypto's got a bonding curve. I think we're at 92.75 today per dollar donated, but that's with that's the Texan token as a donation premium. There's all kinds of other gifts and stuff that the TNM will give for donating. So check it out, and it's an exciting time, and you may be a part of birthing a new nation.
That's super interesting, and this could be the currency, right? Potentially.
Yeah, actually not. Actually, good question. But no, this is a store of value. A currency obviously would be something like a stable. But one of the things that you got to be very cautious about is this is not affiliated with Texas in any way, right? This is not an official anything. And there's no forward-looking statements. And in my opinion, the volatility of crypto and stores of value don't make very good means of exchange.
I know this is the last point in this. I'd love to hear what both you, Gary, and Heartbeat have to say on this. On the one hand, inflation is thought of as bad, right? But when you think of like a medium of exchange, you put it into context within crypto that has these gargantuan, up and to the right movements. And I'm thinking about a medium of exchange that could be kind of, because I see stable coins going away in the future, whether that's 2 years or 6 years or whatever the case is. I just don't see them, it's a good business model to tie your shit to a dead carcass. It's just not a great idea in my mind. But the idea of inflation being a medium level so that holding a crypto is not necessarily a great option because inflation is there. You don't get these maybe gargantuan up and to the right, but what do we want in something that we're going to spend? Something that's not going to be going up in value. The shit that goes up in value, we'd like to hold on to, but the shit that we'd like to spend is the shit that just you can still buy shit with it and transact with it. And I'd love to hear what you guys' thoughts are on this. And then I have to run after I hear your thoughts.
Yeah. You want to take it, Gary? You want me to take it?
Yeah. Let me take it just for a moment. So first thing is my sound is clear. So let me say the thing about Tim Draper. Tim Draper, very well-known VC, a lot of different companies. I think he bought 100,000 Bitcoin. He is more open even when Richard had commented about him the other day than other VCs. So he's not the same as vulture capitalists in my view. He's got television shows and things like that. He's very involved with the startup community of Silicon Valley. I like him a lot. And when he has talked, even though he owns a lot of Bitcoin, him and his son own a lot of other altcoins. And mostly what he comments about is not simply ROI. He says that that has the greatest potential to have control in government and basically to allow people to vote with their feet and take their economic energy with them. So if you say something like, hey, I'm going to move to Malta, I need to move to Puerto Rico, I need to move to, Portugal because my tax structure or, my money is treated best. You have a nomad capitalist mentality like Andrew and his channel talks about. That's one option. A different option is exactly what Richard has espoused in the past, not that long ago, is maybe you could set up an economic opportunity zone. Maybe you could set up a sovereign country of your own. And I think that that's part of the value of the Texan CC, I think it's Texan.cc, idea. Now that's an idea that's not related to speculative ROI. I do want to be clear about that. The tokenomics, I love that they're public and they're known, but who knows what they will be valued by people? Nobody knows, right? So this is not a statement of risk and where you should be on that curve. It is saying that I do like the idea that instead of basically giving up your nationality and your culture, that you can actually determine where your money goes. And this might be some, play on that narrative. I like that a lot. And then on the other thing, you were saying something, if you can reframe your question, Sam, about what you were asking earlier of both me and Matt.
So like things that are going to appreciate, don't really want to get things that are going to just kind of peter along. I'm okay with using those as currency. And I think that having something that has a decently high rate of inflation might be a potentially good thing to use as a medium exchange, as like the stable coin of the future, because I see stable coins just being a present moment thing that people like because they like to see the same dollar amount on the screen. But in reality, I don't think that that's going to be around necessarily in 5 or 10 years. I think we're going to transition to something else, but maybe not. But I just like to hear your thoughts on that. Do you think using a crypto that has a high inflation, right? Because then what does that do? It gives me an incentive to sell that shit, or at least use that for currency of some sort.
Yeah, I think that, just as think about negotiating any value with anyone. The reason that stable coins make sense is because we have to negotiate value in agreements and contracts, and we need to know that, if you look at Hex, 15 minutes could mean 10% change, right? And so you want to know that what we're negotiating has stability. And of course, the best thing potentially for currency is actually to be tied to something of real value like gold or silver or whatever. But because of fiat currency and the nature of us printing, that's where inflation ultimately comes from. I think there are different tools. I don't think stablecoins are going away. If you look at what Ripple's doing with the CBDCs and the central bank digital currencies, stables are actually the things that will make the commerce work. Bitcoin wanted to be, digital cash. It wanted to be this transaction network, and it failed to that. It's a pretty decent store of value, but that's also what Hex is. And I think that when Richard talks about we're going to need a medium of exchange, a means of exchange, I think there will be a stablecoin in Richard's future, which to me completes this vertically aligned ecosystem. So I think they're here to stay. But I understand what you're saying, but I do think that, there's different tools for different things, just like different financial products within the market.
Thank you. Gary, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are that we kind of have the characteristics of currency and money blurring between each other, and they're used like they're interchangeable, but they're not. And when you decide that you're going to enter the workforce and sell your hours, and you're earning, let's say $10 per hour, flipping burgers at a food joint, you can decide that this is going to be the arc of my life, and 40 years times 50 weeks times 8 hours. You can do the math on what your potential is, and then you can say, what is my potential of my time of 40 years going to buy me? What house am I going to live in? How many kids I'm going to be able to afford to support? Things like that. And you can determine your ability when it's known. Things that throw a wrench into that is when it's fiat and it gets produced without any consideration to the population. How many people are we producing? How many new children and new appetites for that scarce resource is there? And will there be? I think that if you're going to say it's a store of value, it should be based on census and number of human beings. If it's not based on those things, then it's arbitrary memes and propaganda and marketing that pushes the crowd to accept and adopt something or not. So I don't know what that necessarily is. I used to be a gold bug. I used to hold a lot of gold and silver and things like that because that seemed reasonable. And yet, even today, even with the idea that 5,000 years of history and this metal is scarce in the Earth's crust, and there's a ratio that geologists, can tell us, we still ever so often discover, trillions of whatever the number is of recent discovery of gold that throws a wrench into that system. And then there's hypothecation and rehypothecation, and nobody holds the actual gold, and there's paper trades that blur those ideas. So I don't really know how that really comes about. When it comes to cryptocurrency, these are speculative instruments. At the end of the day, it's speculation about where the future goes, because where's the future population? What do they value? What do they care about, right? What goods and services do they think that they can get because they were somewhere on the risk curve of saying this crypto versus that crypto, or this fiat versus that one, or this metal versus this one, or this piece of land that I bought, or this education that I paid for, and now it has use case in the market, or it doesn't. We're speculating all the time on everything. And I don't know that crypto is a ultimate savior, and there's a perfect game design, but sooner or later we will get to something that we all as humans agree on. So it doesn't really answer the inflation deflation thing, because these are all ideas. If you decide that you don't like $10 per hour, and you don't like the dollar, and you don't like the idea that your purchasing power is decreasing, then you'll decide to either improve your skill set, improve yourself and your abilities, communicate better, be a better, more socially calibrated to bring people to your cause. And if you don't decide on self-improvement, then you can speculate on the improvement in technology that other people might bring to the marketplace and say, I love Apple, I love cryptocurrency, I love, driverless cars, whatever it is. And you're speculating on that as a value narrative. You can say it's a derivative of stock, or it's somehow tied to cryptocurrency, or, there's a certain number of ounces of silver in every cell phone. I mean, it's all going to be your narrative of what you think is valuable. So inflation is just something we all adjust to.
Fascinating. I want to acknowledge both of you guys for coming on. I've got to run. I don't know if GFC is going to stay on here.
I'm just going to stay on. If Heartbeat, there's a couple questions. I'm going to stay on for another 10 minutes here. Funny Jim, if you want to stick along, thank you guys so much. This has been incredible. Mondays are my favorite, and this has been my favorite. So
great to see both of you gentlemen, and thank you for sharing your insights.
I'll transition you out so it doesn't have to be awkward, Sam. Peace out. So we had a super chat from Toby1 Kenobi. Well, first, this guy asked this question a lot. Will Texas make a joint venture with Florida in becoming independent states? Oh, God, Florida's so crazy wild. That would be another, that's something, do they talk back and forth like these two independent?
Yeah, and it'll happen in the states it needs to happen. I mean, there's a convention of states right now. I mean, if you get 34 states, you can hold Article 5 allows you to hold a convention of states, and that could be a way in which things could be reformed. But yeah, this one here, Toby Wan Hexobi, yes, you can. You can self-refer. So basically, the referral is over $500 donated to the TNM. If you refer someone, you get 5% bonus on your own or whatever that they donate as well. So that's in Texan token bonus, not in anything else.
He says, I only endorse RH products, but the Texas token seems like a worthy cause to donate to. And you guys are opening my mind about what's possible, really. I mean,
Well, yeah, the case I make, honestly, before we were, when I heard first about the Pulse chain and the system state, I thought, okay, this is incredible. That's when I started my channel, right? And those are the times we're starting to talk about these things. And what I think is, and I think actually, Gary, you've mentioned this before as well. The people that used to be able to get access to these kind of gains were just guys in Silicon Valley, in the top of a penthouse suite, and they got Mark Zuckerberg to come in when he was a kid at Harvard, right? They saw the 10,000 X's, right? What's amazing about this era is if you look at the typical VC, I've had VC say to me, I'll do 10 deals hoping one works out. Right? They know that these things don't. And I look at this and I go, I sat with Balliet Brand, one of the first interviews I ever did. And he goes, hey, Matt, when $100 turns into $1 million and $1,000 turns into 10 million? I was like, what? You're absolutely kidding me. He goes, no, that happens. I was like, how many of those do you need to get? How many flyers do you need to make? And you think about the 10 to 1 in the VC world. What is it in the crypto space, especially when you've got people in this Richard Hart ecosystem? But you got to be able to know how to pick a horse to ride, because I look at some of these big whales and they've made like 8 trades, right? Bitcoin to Ethereum to Hex to Pulse X, right? I mean, that's it. There's not a bunch of trading. That's it. And next thing you know, they got, $6 billion paper value, but still.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I believe in Texan token because my reasons for donating went through a process of discovery within myself. I believe in Matt and Brandon, which ultimately strengthened my decision. I always come back to that. And it's not about Matt and Brandon. It's not about RH, and it's not about anyone, but it is about understanding the person that is doing the shit that you're doing. You can't lie for so long online. Like, in reality, you can only do so much lying. And that's why the guys that lie stay behind the scenes a lot, because they have to. You can't expose yourself to bullets all day long and not expect to get hit. And they're just hiding because they have to. They're in the corner of the internet teaching people that are scared, teaching people that, you know, they're trying to make their money and do their thing. But my whole point is, like, it is like a decentralized situation, but it's 100% centralized at the same time, because it's like, it really has to do with, we believe in Richard's transparency, and we believe that he's being transparent with us. I mean, period. Like I have to defer sometimes, and not with every little verbiage and every little nidbit he says here and there about Bitcoin. I'm not talking about that. But when he says, you know, I think Bitcoin's going to 11K, I truthfully believe he thinks that. And I don't think there's anyone else in crypto who's saying what they truthfully believe. They're saying what they're getting paid to believe.
Yeah, you got to
they don't have money. Usually.
You got to pick a horse to ride. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, think about this. I'm sure everybody that was in Celsius thought that was great. They trusted, you know, Mashitsky. They basically, I mean,
all of them though.
And Richard
knew a little bit.
Yeah,
like,
Richard knows what he's talking about, though. Here's the cool thing about Richard: he'll tell you that it's a meme. He will tell you it's a story you're buying into. And the question is, you have to read between the lines and do your own research, and you have to pick a horse to ride. Your horse doesn't always win. And that's the thing, you know, a lot of us, we're sold out on Richard Hart, but there are other horses, and you have to be able to discern that. And, you know, I made the stupid decisions. How do you learn things? You get wrecked.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here if I didn't get wrecked. If I didn't get hacked, I probably wouldn't.
I remember that stream so well, dude. I watched that.
Yeah,
live.
I wouldn't have kept streaming, because it was like a catalyst, right? It's just like volatility in crypto. It's like when bad things happen to you, smart people learn how to use energy instead of let it hurt you all day.
You handle that very, very well, dude.
You just use it. Yeah, I've you know how many girls have broken up with me that were drop dead gorgeous, wanted to freaking die. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Where you're just like to the point where it's like, I mean, I'm talking back in the day when I was more emotional about all the stuff. You know, you get a little older and you start to, you know, think about it a little different. But you know, when you're young and you really don't know how to handle those emotions yet, it's like the same thing. After you do it 100 times, you know, I just want to get back to work sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, it's just another day in the office, but I kind of forget what the fuck I'm talking about. I've been on here for an hour and 40 minutes. I'm going to be streaming a lot today. Gunther's coming on to do a debate at 5:30 p.m. Wow. I said I would host it. I'm not going to be interjecting in the debate. I've made it very clear my stance on Pulse Doge and my opinion about what the information that I have. And it's not about that. It's about these guys shutting up on Twitter and getting out there so I can expose them if they're bullshitting. So and you know, it's for fun too. Like, I don't hate any of these guys. They're all just having a good time. So Funding Jim, any closing words? Crypto Heartbeat after?
No, I mean, I liked what he had said earlier about living a life of purpose. I love that about Matt. I think that if more people sit down with a piece of paper and write out what their principles are, they'll be more defined and live a purpose-driven type of life. I think that that's value, and I admire his boldness and bravery to put time, resources, brand, reputation to the product that he's launched or is launching. Of course, I like the fact that he says it's going to be on Pulse Chain. I like that there's going to be more audience that sees and hears about the products I'm invested in. I'm invested in things that have the characteristics. I think even earlier in the stream, someone had said, you know, admin key free, you know, public doxing. I like that. You know, the tokenomics, whether they work out or not, and they attract a audience that buys into the story. That's a different thing. The ROI and the dollar figure is a different thing, but I really can support things that have a declared statement, and I support people that declare their principles. And I think that Matt's great about that, and I think he's the best representative for the product of Texan.
I think that was a great distinction there. Anything else before you go, Heartbeat?
Yeah, I'll just say this. This is not for everyone. And and Brandon says this all the time too. Hex is fantastic, right? And our recommendation would be, you know, if you're not interested in the, you know, this political aspect of it, right? We wanted to push back, right? You're funding something that has a political outcome. They want to get a referendum on the ballot of Texas, right? That's very, very specific. Buy Hex instead. That's my recommendation to you. Buy Hex instead. It's on sale, right? This is not for everyone. And I'm not even advocating that it is. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to tokenize this community, but at the,
and I hit up our
decision. It has a decision. It's not.
I hit you up to talk this morning, by the way. Like, he never hit me up. Like, it was just I was in his chat. He said, "What's up?" And I wanted to have a chat. So it wasn't like I never even knew. I didn't know much about Texas Token just because I've been busy as fuck, and I'm not like rich like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like it's not exactly just like you said. Like, it's like I know what position that I'm in for me, but like in 10 years, like if it was the same conversation, it might be a different conversation. You know what I mean? Like, I might just be like, oh yeah, I care way more about independence and I have more money to donate now. And I'd love to spread that out. But I'm 28 years old, I'm just trying to like chill.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the whole point. And I think that that's important. I want to make sure, because that's really the FUD that's out there is no, I mean, this is, this may appeal to you but here's the thing that's really cool. I think it's within the Richard Heart ecosystem, and we're doing something that's never been done with the blockchain. We're tying it directly to something that has a political outcome. This is not JPEGs loosely associated with serial numbers. This is not Bored Ape Yacht Club. This isn't breeding online critters with Axie Infinity. This actually matters for my grandkids, right? That's the stuff I'm working on. It's not for everybody, right? So, that's the important thing is like, we're another project on the Pulse chain. There's 78 of them. Do your own research.
And learning is just what you do when you're smart, when you want to have like people came at me hard when I started telling people how to provide liquidity, and I never even done it yet. I was looking up demos. I was telling everyone I was learning. Yeah. I was like, guys, can I learn about this? Like, and we can all enjoy this together, because I'm trying to learn how to sell my Hex in a proper way. And that's what I was literally doing. Like, some whales had told me the way that they sell Hex, and I said, I'd like to learn how to do that. To move, because I have Ethereum, right? I hold Ethereum. So I was like, oh, like this is blah, blah, blah. And then everyone's like, you're getting everyone wrecked. And I'm like, but I already have 2 bags of this shit. Like, and then anyway, guys, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Literally. Thank you so much for just being yourselves and pushing hard at whatever the hell you're doing, because that's all that matters. You got to push hard. You can't be afraid of the future. You just got to go for it. Like, the future is not going to be like, hey, the answer's right here. You just have to make it sometimes. You just got to make the answers. And right now we have a time where we can be very, very ingenuitive, or whatever the fucking word is. We can make shit happen right now with DeFi, blockchain tech, all this shit. Richard Heart, guys, let's pump out so I can go to the gym. Thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful day. I'll be back on at 5:30 p.m. Eastern tonight, Crypto in the Evening with Gunther and somebody he's debating. And who knows what's going to happen, guys. Have a great day.
Young folks, you tripping on them motherfucker. Richard Heart. Richard Heart. Bought my Hex from the fucking start. .1 every day we mark. Bought my Hex from the fucking start. Sacrificing all this bread like I'm Richard Heart. Got paid on big payday and I had a hairy start. Now I'm checking on my pulse just to check my heart. Bought my Hex from the fucking start. Sacrificing all this bread like I'm Richard Heart. Got paid on big payday and I had a hairy start. Now I'm checking on my pulse just to check my heart. Checking my MetaMask moving. Look at the Hex, he is mooning. Looking at wives they be choosing. Peter is why they be losing. Pull chains out, now get me a check. He's gas up and it got me a mess. Remember the times he died collect. Hex I been eating, I'm dying in the best. Getting this back like a year ago. Getting this post, I ain't letting go. Swerving the ring like a Lambo. Getting this back like a year ago. Getting this post, I ain't letting go. Swerving the ring like a Lambo. Bought my Hex from the fucking start. Sacrificing all this bread like I'm Richard Heart. Got paid on big payday and I had a hairy start. Now I'm checking on my pulse just to check my heart. Bought my Hex from the fucking start. Sacrificing all this bread like I'm Richard Heart. Got paid on big payday and I had a hairy start. Now I'm checking on my pulse just to check my heart. Richard Heart. Richard Heart.